What's going on, everybody? It's PJ here with the SRNA Drip, and today I want to tell you about my shadow experience in the OR. So let's get into it. So although shadowing is a requirement for most CRNA programs, it's essentially where you either fall in love with the profession or realize that this is not what you want to do at all. So it's very important that you take some time and shadow an actual CRNA. And for me, I was like a kid in a candy store from the time that I stepped foot in the OR until I left. Just to give you a timeline of when I shadowed, my first day as a nurse, period, was July 24th, 2017. And my first shadow day was January 9th, 2018. So about 6 months in of being a nurse, I decided to shadow. I actually got in contact with my residency coordinator, who then put me in contact with the chief of anesthesia, who then put me in contact with the SRNA coordinator, and that's how I landed my shadow day. So I had to do kind of like a chain of command effect, and I picked the first day that was offered to me and didn't look back. So I got to the hospital about 30 minutes before I was supposed to change into my OR scrubs, to find out where to go and who my preceptor was gonna be. So I got all of that done. I met my preceptor. We went to the OR, and while she got her setup ready for the cases, she was asking me questions about where I'm from and just kind of general icebreaker questions, and it made me feel more comfortable because I was super nervous. I may not have shown it, but I was really nervous because I didn't know if I was supposed to know certain things by now or what the expectation was going to be from me. I didn't know if I would like it, and I didn't know if they would be mean or rude or whatever, but that was not the case. So I was pretty excited once I found out who my preceptor was. And actually, she's a great mentor to me today and friend, so we keep in contact, and I just love her so much for even taking me under her wing. So once we got the setup ready for the case, we went down to pre-op, met the patient, did the pre-op assessment for the patient, MALLAMPATI scores, and all that good history and background, ever had an allergy to this, and just a whole bunch of things. And I was just taking it all in and watching her as she worked. We got the patient back to the OR, got him on the table, put in an IV, and then it was time for the magic. So we went through the 3 phases, of course: induction, maintenance, and emergence. And this is really where you get a feel for what CRNAs do, and the autonomy that they have is ridiculous. It showed me how vigilant you have to be with your surroundings, and not just your anesthesia machine and the monitor, but what's going on with the case, and anticipating what you may need. Are you hearing a lot of suctioning? Does that mean it's a lot of bleeding going on? Do you anticipate that you're gonna need blood? You're watching your hemodynamics. You're looking at your urine output. It's just, there's so much that goes into it. I was I was impressed. I really was. And like I said, I loved it from the time that I started to the time we finished. So once we pretty much got everything started, we went over some different concepts, and she asked me questions about the ICU and what I had been learning so far. And we talked about different anesthesia concepts, the minimum alveolar concentration. We talked about different modes on the anesthesia machine. And she even kind of quizzed me a bit to say, okay, well, if you're in this situation and your patient's CO2 is unexpectedly high, what could you change to bring it down? So I had to think about it. I'm like, but I had went over it in my bridge class for the ICU, so I said, well, you would either increase your tidal volume or increase your respiratory rate. And that was the correct answer, but then she went into detail about, well, this is why you would change this one first, this is why you would change this one after, and it just opened my mind a little bit more to the things that need to be taken into consideration. We also talked about different drugs and how they differ in their uses in anesthesia versus in the ICU. So that was pretty interesting as well. Once emergence comes around, you kind of anticipate the doctor's going to be wrapping up the case. You're making sure that your patient is coming out of the paralytic, and you wake them up at an appropriate time so you're not delaying the case, and so that they're not stuck on the ventilator because they can't wake up and they can't breathe and all this other stuff. So it was just so much, and I was just so fascinated. So, and then I did 2 cases that first day. The first case was pretty flyby, and the second case they had to prone the patient, so that was pretty interesting as well. And then I went home. So it was very informative. I learned so much. I knew that that's what I wanted to do after that first shadow day, but I know I wanted to get more hours under my belt just for CRNA school purposes. Shadowing is a numerical requirement, so the more hours that you have, the better. And if you are in a level 1 trauma center or just any hospital in general, you're going to see many different cases versus a more specialized setting like endo or plastics or any outpatient surgery center setting where you may only see a certain type of surgery happening or anesthesia provided. You may want to try to vary your experiences elsewhere so that you can get a broad, general knowledge for how different cases look. And also keep your own log. So I generated a template for myself, and it was a log of all of my anesthesia shadowing hours and what type of cases that I saw, and I had my preceptor sign at the bottom. So some schools will have their own anesthesia logs, and they may want you to use that. But what I did, I emailed the program coordinators and I asked if my log that I had already had and signed would suffice for their program, and it did most of the time. There was one school that really wanted their specific shadowing log, and they wanted you to shadow with somebody that was affiliated with the school or something crazy like that. So I was like, next. So that's just a short synopsis of my time when I shadowed. And if you have any questions about shadowing or how you can possibly schedule shadow time, please comment, subscribe, put your post notifications on. Let me know what questions you have in the comments, okay? And I'll try to answer and get back to you. And with that being said, I'm out.